Paris Olympics, very intense gold medal game. Do you think with this World versus USA format, that level of intensity can be duplicated?
No.
I almost didn't talk about this today because there has been a complete lack of interest in NBA All-Star Weekend. And to be honest with you, calling this a complete lack of interest is an understatement. That description would be more appropriate for a secondary dump like Unrivaled. The level of interest is so low right now in the NBA. I have seen
The silence inside the arena was not ordinary quiet, it was the kind that echoes, the kind that makes every sneaker squeak and every distant cough sound amplified. What was supposed to be a dazzling celebration of basketball excellence, the annual NBA All-Star Weekend, instead unfolded like a spectacle stripped of its soul. For decades, this event symbolized glamour, excitement, and the pure joy of the sport, a moment when the NBA showcased its brightest stars in a festival of skill and creativity. But this time, something felt profoundly off. The energy that once electrified crowds seemed to have vanished, leaving behind an atmosphere so flat it bordered on surreal. Seats that should have been filled with roaring fans appeared shockingly empty, creating a visual that spoke louder than any commentary ever could. It wasn't simply that attendance looked thin, it was the impression that enthusiasm itself had drained from the building. The cameras tried their best to frame tight shots, to avoid wide angles that would reveal the gaps, but the absence was impossible to hide entirely. Viewers watching from home could sense it immediately, the missing buzz, the missing anticipation, the missing heartbeat of a live sporting event. What made the scene even more striking was the contrast with the event's history. All-Star Weekend was once synonymous with spectacle, celebrities courtside, fans traveling across continents, highlight plays replayed for years. It was a cultural moment as much as a sports one. Yet now, instead of awe, the global audience reacted with disbelief. Social media feeds filled not with praise or excitement but with confusion and criticism, as viewers tried to understand how something once so vibrant could feel so hollow. The disappointment wasn't rooted solely in nostalgia. It came from expectation. When an event builds a legacy of excellence, people assume that standard will be maintained. So when the reality falls dramatically short, the reaction is sharper, almost personal. Many longtime followers describe the experience as watching a shadow of what used to be a polished shell without the spark that once made it irresistible. In the end, the quiet wasn't just about empty seats. It symbolized a deeper concern, that an event designed to celebrate the very best of basketball had somehow lost the very energy that made it matter. And that realization hung over the entire weekend like a cloud, impossible to ignore and impossible to dismiss.
All-Star Weekend has been a major embarrassment for the NBA again. Last night, after I sat through the flaming ass fire known as the three-point shooting competition and the dunk contest, where Dame Lillard shocked the world by winning the three-point shooting competition on one leg. Hell, the dunk contest was so bad, a legless man in a wheelchair could have won it. Some dude named Kashad Johnson, he wasn't competing in the dunk contest. This dude looked like he was auditioning for...
For years, subtle signals from players themselves have hinted at a growing indifference toward the mid-season showcase. Interviews, body language, and even gameplay intensity have occasionally suggested that many participants view the event as more obligation than honor. While no one states it outright in official statements, the message has often been visible between the lines. For them, the weekend simply doesn't carry the same importance it once did. This shift matters because the event's original purpose was never solely about competition. It was designed as a celebration, a stage where the league's most recognizable faces could connect with fans, attract new audiences, and remind the world why the sport captivates millions. When those very stars appear disengaged, the foundation of that concept begins to weaken. Enthusiasm is contagious, but so is indifference. If players seem uninterested, spectators are unlikely to feel invested. Over time, that subtle disengagement can accumulate into a noticeable trend. A single lackluster performance might be dismissed as an off night, but repeated signs of low intensity create a pattern that's harder to ignore. Analysts have pointed out that the event's energy level has fluctuated for years, with occasional bursts of excitement overshadowed by long stretches of routine play. The irony is that the showcase was meant to be a marketing engine, drawing in viewers who might not normally watch regular season games. Instead, the very individuals meant to promote it may have inadvertently undermined its appeal. When highlight moments feel forced or half-hearted, they fail to generate the kind of viral excitement that once made the weekend a cultural phenomenon. This gradual erosion doesn't happen overnight. It unfolds slowly, almost imperceptibly, until one year the difference becomes impossible to ignore. By then, the challenge isn't just improving the next event, it's rebuilding the audience's belief that the event still matters. Restoring that belief requires more than marketing campaigns or production upgrades, it requires genuine competitive spirit on display. Without that spark, even the most prestigious showcase risks becoming just another date on the calendar, an obligation rather than an occasion.
I've wanted to watch the new season of Blind as Love on Netflix. Now, for those that don't know, Blind Love is a dating show where men and women can talk to each other, but they can't see each other. The goal is to get engaged based on an emotional connection instead of a physical attraction. There's a former athlete on the show. I believe he was a semi-professional or maybe even a professional soccer player. Either way, this dude is the typical Chad Thundercock. He's a great talker. He's one of those dudes that can sweet talk the ladies, but
taken together, the weekend's reception painted a sobering picture of how quickly perception can shift in modern sports culture. An event that once symbolized excitement, innovation, and star power suddenly found itself facing widespread skepticism. The reaction wasn't limited to critics or analysts, it echoed across fan communities, talk shows, and online discussions, forming a chorus of concern about the event's direction. One of the defining features of contemporary fandom is immediacy. Viewers don't wait days to share opinions, they react instantly, posting thoughts in real time. That immediacy can amplify both praise and criticism, and in this case, the criticism spread rapidly. Clips highlighting quiet crowd moments or underwhelming plays circulated widely, shaping public perception before official recaps even aired. Yet the situation also presents an opportunity. Moments of disappointment can serve as catalysts for change. When an organization recognizes that an event has lost its spark, it can experiment with new formats, fresh incentives, or creative twists designed to reignite excitement. Some of the most successful reinventions in sports history have come after periods of stagnation, when leagues realized they needed to evolve to meet shifting audience expectations. The key challenge lies in balancing tradition with innovation. Fans cherish nostalgia, but they also crave novelty. An event rooted too heavily in the past risks feeling outdated, while one that changes too drastically risks losing its identity. Finding that middle ground requires careful planning and a willingness to listen to feedback even when that feedback is harsh. In the end, the weekend's reception may be remembered less for what happened on the court and more for what it revealed off it. It highlighted how fragile even the most celebrated traditions can be if they fail to maintain the excitement that first made them iconic. And it underscored a simple truth about sports entertainment: no matter how storied an event's history may be, its future depends entirely on whether it can still make fans feel something when they watch.
Weren't, I'd still love you. That is a really appealing shit sandwich. That's nice and all, but it's a lie. If that poor woman had a boil in the middle of her forehead, Chad Thundercock would be running faster than Lizzo at the buffet. Looks matter. Appearance matters. But the inverse is true as well. Here on the channel, how many times have I talked about beautiful women?
The competitions themselves did little to silence critics. In fact, some segments seemed to reinforce the growing skepticism. Take the three-point contest, for example. When Damian Lillard managed to claim victory despite appearing physically limited, the moment was framed by commentators as shocking, almost surreal. Under normal circumstances, such a feat might have been celebrated as heroic perseverance. Yet the surrounding atmosphere dulled the impact, leaving viewers unsure whether to applaud or question what they had just seen. Then came the dunk contest, historically one of the weekend's most anticipated highlights. In past years, it produced gravity-defying moments that lived on in highlight reels for decades. This time, however, many fans felt the competition lacked both creativity and urgency. Critics described it as disorganized and oddly flat, with attempts that failed to ignite the crowd or spark the kind of viral excitement the event once guaranteed. One participant, Kashad Johnson, drew particular attention not necessarily for his performance as an athlete, but for how out of place the moment seemed. Commentators joked that his movements resembled someone auditioning for Dancing with the Stars rather than competing in a high-profile basketball showcase. The comparison, though humorous, underscored a deeper critique, that the spectacle had drifted away from elite competition towards something that felt more like entertainment filler. What made these reactions so striking was the contrast between expectation and reality. Fans tune into these contests anticipating innovation, drama, and a sense of occasion. When what they witness instead feels routine or uninspired, disappointment sets in quickly. In sports entertainment, excitement is currency. Without it, even technically impressive feats can fall flat. The sparse crowd reaction only amplified that perception. Applause sounded scattered, cheers brief and restrained. It created a feedback loop. The players seemed less energized because the crowd was subdued, and the crowd seemed subdued because the performances lacked spark. That cycle made the entire segment feel strangely disconnected, as if performers and audience were existing in separate emotional spaces. By the end of the night, many viewers were left with the impression that what they had watched wasn't a celebration of basketball excellence but a collection of moments that never quite caught fire. And for an event built on spectacle, failing to ignite excitement may be the most damaging outcome of all.
And that is exactly what the NBA is. On the surface, NBA All-Star Weekend is visually appealing. It's polished, the production values at NBC are incredible. Credit where credit is due. NBC did a phenomenal job yesterday polishing this turd. But then you actually watch the event, and it doesn't take long for this polished turd to become the drizzling shits. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Let's go and get it.
Describing the atmosphere as mere lack of interest would hardly capture the depth of what unfolded. A secondary exhibition or preseason showcase might occasionally struggle to draw attention, and fans would shrug it off as inconsequential. But this was supposed to be the league's crown jewel of mid-season entertainment, its grand showcase meant to captivate both die-hard followers and casual viewers alike. Instead, the mood suggested something closer to outright rejection. Observers noted that the apathy surrounding the event felt unusually intense, almost tangible. Conversations online and among commentators reflected a shared sentiment: people weren't just skipping the broadcast, they were actively choosing not to care. That distinction mattered. Disinterest can be passive, but rejection is deliberate. It signals that audiences have evaluated what's being offered and decided it isn't worth their time. For a marquee event, that's a troubling message. Comparisons began surfacing, some tongue-in-cheek, others surprisingly serious. Critics joked that one could find more excitement watching preseason matches from Major League Soccer, a remark intended less as an insult to soccer and more as a commentary on how dramatically expectations had shifted. The All-Star festivities were supposed to represent peak entertainment, not something measured against low-stakes exhibitions. The sense that the league had reached a low point didn't emerge from a single factor. It was the cumulative effect of multiple elements: muted crowd reactions, lackluster performances, and an overall tone that felt strangely indifferent. When viewers sense that participants themselves aren't fully invested, it becomes difficult for them to invest emotionally as well. Sports thrive on intensity, passion, and stakes even in exhibition formats. Without those ingredients, the spectacle risks feeling more like a rehearsal than a performance. What troubled analysts most was the potential ripple effect. A disappointing weekend doesn't exist in isolation. Major events shape perception, and perception shapes future interest. If audiences begin associating a flagship showcase with boredom or disappointment, rebuilding that excitement becomes an uphill battle. The concern wasn't just about one underwhelming year, it was about what it might signal for the event's long-term relevance. In that sense, the reaction went beyond criticism. It carried an undercurrent of worry that something once iconic might be losing its grip on the public imagination. And that possibility, more than empty seats or quiet arenas, was what truly made the situation feel alarming.